As I'm currently writing this, it is the morning of the 5th of August 2021, and last night something happened to me in Guild Wars 2 that I've never seen in all my years of playing the game. Something that showed me just how amazing the game can truly be. But before I talk about what happened, let's give some context to it. I've been a player of Guild Wars 2 since 2015. In that time, I've explored a lot, if not most of what the game has to offer, with the exception being raids, which I'm either too scared to try, or too unprepared on all my characters. Throughout all these years, the vast majority of the game has been spent playing it solo, with no one I know in person having any interest in playing the game. That's not to say I haven't participated in group content across the game. In fact, I regularly join up in groups for dungeons, world bosses, and more recently, strike missions. However, I've never once felt the same appreciation or enjoyment during these encounters as I did last night here at Twilight Arbor. While looking around for groups to take on the dungeon, as I'm trying to work towards some new armour for my Sylvari Thief, I found a group on LFG advertising for players. What caught my eye immediately was the route that they were taking through the explorable version of the dungeon, that being the third Aether Blade route, one I had only recently learned about after all these years of playing the game, and one I was extremely excited to play, being some of the only remnants of Living World Season 1 content still left in the game. So I joined, and found they were only at the start of the route. I said hello as I normally do, and started to work through the dungeon with them just like any other time. That was until we got to the first quote-unquote challenge of the dungeon. That being the Ooze Escort. As someone who's never played this route and not really knowing what to do, I was surprised to see help being given in the form of some of the more experienced players on the team. They laid out what we had to do in an overall sense, and then we tried the encounter. Having two members of the group that didn't really know how the encounter worked meant we failed it straight away, and for a couple of times afterwards. Now this is where something unexpected happened, and something I've never seen in all my time of dungeoning in Guild Wars 2. Instead of the other members of the team getting pissed off that we didn't know what to do, or quitting to find a better team to go through the dungeon with, both of which I've seen numerous times over the years, they decided to run through the encounter step by step, showing the rest of us what to do in layman's terms, and helping us to understand how the encounter worked. Not only is this an amazing example of some really very friendly players in the game, but it more importantly shows how groups can come together to face challenging content in the game, and get a lot more out of that experience than just the rewards at the end. So much so that after being shown how, and helped through the encounter, we was able to complete it as a team and became closer because of it. But it didn't just stop there. At the next encounter, the more experienced players showed us how to avoid the electrified floor, and then the next, all the way up until the final boss of the route, by which time everyone in the group was talking and chatting like they were old acquaintances, talking about everything from the Living World Season 1 to even starting a guild together, named after our trials and tribulations with the Ooze encounter. This is what group content should be about in the game, bringing players together to have this kind of experience and forge long-lasting memories, and maybe even making friends. This is where Guild Wars 2 is at its best, showing that it can give these rewarding experiences just like any other MMO out there that does it on a far larger scale. I said earlier that most of my experiences of Guild Wars 2 has been solo, and that's not because I didn't want to play it with other players, it's because of a fundamental design in the game which really doesn't encourage players to come together in this way and have these moments. The game never encourages group content, and it's quite happy for you to play through the whole game by yourself, with the exception of a few story beats. As so, I really do believe that many players are missing out on this experience, and how you can connect with players around you in a much more meaningful and engaging way. There is a whole topic to go into on this, and I'm really not the right person to talk about it. There are far more qualified members of the community here on YouTube talking about this. But even when doing dungeons and some group content, there's really nothing else in the game that helps to foster cooperation and more discussion between the groups while doing this content. Most of my dungeon experiences are saying hello as you enter the group, saying nothing outside of a few tips throughout the dungeon, and then thanking everyone at the end before quickly leaving the group and everyone going their own way. There's nothing throughout all of this that helps the group to bond, nothing in the content itself to foster more communication between the group members. Maybe that's because of how easy most dungeon content is, or how there is nothing in the leveling experiences that encourages players to do this. Either way, it means that a lot of players will never get to experience a sense of camaraderie and cooperation in group content, probably only doing the content for rewards and nothing else. In a game that is fundamentally a multiplayer game, it's sad to think that there really is a lack of these meaningful and wonderful cooperative moments for most players. To briefly finish off my story from last night, after completing the final boss of the dungeon, not only did everyone in the group stay to help each other find all of the optional achievements and other hidden secrets on the route, but we continued to bond over our experiences in the dungeon, leading to all of us adding each other as friends once we did eventually leave the instance. It was because of the bond that we had made in the game that allowed everyone to get more out of the encounter than we would normally have had. And because of it, I now have 4 new friends in the game that I wouldn't have had before. But I want to leave you with this. Despite everyone adding each other as friends at the end of this route, will we really talk to each other again and experience more content with each other? Or will we just fall back into the habit of finding another random group on LFG to do the content with and never saying another word to anyone else? Only having them on a friends list of people that you really can't remember what you did with them. It's something to think about.